Episode 102, Coffee with John and Mary Ann Connolly.
Today is gonna be a little something more. I've got a plan in mind, a special thing in store. The light bulb inside my head says, get out and play, 'cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day.
Well, you're listening to Coffee with John, Caregiver Success. And I know if you're providing care as a family caregiver or professional caregiver, it is somebody's lucky day to have you helping them, providing care for them. Hey, we want to have inspiring conversations with family and professional caregivers to support the healthcare needs of our aging population. Today, Mary Ann Connolly will be joining us for coffee. Now, Mary Ann had a journalism career and was working for major media outlets like ABC and Fox News. But then one day, circumstances suddenly changed, and she needed to return home to become a family caregiver for her aging parents. Well, her background in journalism provides a unique perspective on a caregiver's journey. But first, a good word for caregivers.
God cares for caregivers. Remember, He's one too. Do you remember the phrase that said, "In your presence there is joy"? Keep that in mind when you think you've lost your joy. Oh, you've wanted to be glad, you've wanted to be happy for the one that you're giving care to, and yet when you walk out the door, down the hallway, it's a heavy weight. And where's the joy? Where is it? Well, it's in His presence. Don't forget that. The joy of the Lord is your strength, and you want to be strong. You want to be strong not just for the one to whom you are showing love and care, but you simply really want to be strong, literally, in the things of God. Listen to this. It's out of Psalm 16. It says, "You have made known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence." Yes, that's where you need to be. You need to get into the presence of God for just a little bit. You know, you find a place where it's a kind of a secret place, just you and God together, where you can settle back. Maybe it's a comfortable chair, and you can just say, "Lord, I need to get in your presence. I need your joy. I need your strength. Help me, Lord." And then start rejoicing. And when you do, you will find out that God cares for caregivers because He's one too.
Well, welcome back. We're having coffee with Mary Ann Connolly today. Now, Mary Ann, she has a passion to create meaningful and memorable content by combining classic storytelling techniques with the latest, most innovative tech tools available. You know, her professional work ranges from short video pieces for Fox to a hip-hop music history documentary for Bravo. Well, today, she is going to share her personal story as a caregiver. Mary Ann, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, it's so great to chat with you. Now, you have an interesting background because you kind of, came into this caregiving journey, but your professional background is journalism and writing. You're a PR content creator with Mac Media, MacMediaTX.com. Why don't you just do a little bit, kind of, number one, tell us who do you want to listen to this episode, and then just kind of tell us a little bit of how you got into the caregiving journey.
Well, basically, I would want anyone to listen to this in any field, but especially anyone who is interested, obviously, in caregiving and healthy aging. But honestly, as a journalist, I always want to get my message to the broadest possible audience. And I actually think anybody who's alive has to face this subject.
We're all going to get old. Is that what you're saying? We're all aging?
Well, that's become it's used by a lot of groups now. Especially I love our local Austin app, Aging Everybody's Doing It, which I think is a great tagline. Yeah, I mean, the alternative is kind of bleak. So I think if we don't admit we're aging, or we at least don't want to age, then we don't want to be here, right?
Yeah.
So we need to become a little bit more comfortable with that term.
Yeah. Do you think there's some unique challenges or perspectives that millennials have in as they're sort of experiencing the caregiving process?
Yes. I mean, interestingly enough, I have found the millennials that I have met in this space who are working with startups or who have experienced it at home with an aging grandparent, and many who are also caring for those grandparents and some parents to be much more evolved on some level. As I hate to say this, but I'll be blunt. I feel a lot of boomers are still in denial about aging. And I'm Gen X, so I can get away with saying that. I'm right on the edge of boomer. I don't know where that comes from, because my parents were greatest generation and they were in a little bit of denial too. But
Yeah.
I think that was partially because their generation died of heart attack and stroke
Right.
typically in their 70s and maybe 80s.
Yeah.
Not everybody was living into their 90s and hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's, I tell my kids, I have 7 children, and I tell them that I'm going to be around for a long time and you guys better take care of me. And I think that is a perspective that, realistically, we will probably be around 100 plus. That will be a fairly common age. And so, my kids are sort of, my oldest is kind of a late millennial, and he is kind of seeing that because he can kind of see his grandparents and see that, I'm going to be in this journey for a while. Well, why don't you do this? Tell us how you were working in journalism and then kind of one day you got a phone call and you became a caregiver. What did that look like and what happened and how did you navigate that journey?
Well, let's see. I was 37 and I was living in New York City, and I got the fateful call that everybody gets. I visited my folks probably every 6 months or every year, or they would come to visit me in New York, and I was there for 15 years. So my caregiving journey really started with that emergency call from a cousin that said, "Your mom's in the hospital, get on your first flight down. We're not sure she's going to make it," which is the worst call that you never want to get,
Yes.
right? So I started my journey with that trip. I think in 2002 is really where I see it starting, where I suddenly realized my father couldn't cook. Well, I knew he couldn't cook or clean or do laundry because he was old school. But, for 6 weeks of my mother's being in the hospital, whom luckily did make it and did quite well, I became the wife or the mom, trying to care for my, at that time, 80-year-old dad. And luckily, I was a freelance producer at the time, so I was in between projects, and I was able to spend the 6 weeks in San Antonio with my folks. And that's when I started to see what many of my friends were also trying to convince me of, which was, "Marianne, you need to come back to Texas. You're an only child of older parents. You need to be closer by, because things aren't going to get any easier now. They're going to just get worse."
So the first thing is you had to move from New York, and did you move to San Antonio or Austin?
I could only see myself in Austin. I went to UT, and I was also, living in New York City. So the blue oasis of Austin, Texas was probably the only place I could imagine myself surviving. And it was just far enough away. It was an hour and a half away from my folks. I was never a huge fan of San Antonio. It's a great city. But since I went to high school and middle school there, I always wanted to be further away.
Yeah.
So I thought that was close enough. And quite honestly, it was time for me to leave New York City. I'd been there 15 years. 9/11 had just happened. The market in media was a little more difficult after 9/11. And so I was also looking to have a better, quality of life.
Yeah. And how did you start your caregiving? So as you moved closer, were your parents in assisted living, memory care? What did that look like?
Yeah, we went through, the reason I'm working on a book is because we went through every single stage. we started out trying to bring help to them in their home. And we had a breast cancer diagnosis, mastectomy, radiation, hip breaks, all while my parents were still in their house that they retired in a beautiful neighborhood called Windcrest, which is a military, retiree center. And lucky for us, my dad was retired military, so he did have good health care, and he did have TRICARE, which was TRICARE for life in addition to Medicare.
Right.
But I was going home. It felt, I think, in the beginning, maybe every month or so, to help out. And then as each emergency happened, I was the advocate in the hospital. I was the driver. I was the cook. I was increasingly becoming, as a journalist, the person who remembered everything the doctor said and took all the notes and answered all the questions. And starting to see changes in my folks, individually needing more help. My mother had been legally blind for many years because of macular degeneration. So my dad had taken over a lot of the roles as like driver, medicine guy, medicine man, I guess we would call him. And there was something there was some gift in that they always alternated their emergencies. So when one was really, really sick, the other one would be fine.
Right.
And
that was nice of them.
Yeah, it was nice of them to plan it that way. I don't know if they had any foresight about that, but we had, several stages before independent living. Before we even thought about moving them out of their house of 35 years.
Yeah.
We started shopping for places, but they did not want to leave their house. So one of my deepest and dearest regrets, and one of the things I want to advocate to help people figure out better, is being able to stay in your home for as long as possible, because my parents certainly did not want to leave.
Yeah.
And if I could have afforded or understood better ways to keep them in their home, at the time the technology wasn't there. My parents were Luddites anyway, so they weren't really savvy about tech. But they also weren't eating and cooking. So we decided to move them to an independent 5-level continuum of care place in 2008.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to see what's happening, to help support that, aging in place, because, that really is the best solution. I want to go back to something you talked about. And, when you sort of took over this role, you were the note taker and the detail person on the office visits. God help us if I'm the one that has to take care of my parents, because I am not, I can't take care of my dog, right? So,
but you have 7 children. You should be fine.
I have a wife, so she keeps everybody alive. But what would you say to someone who is finding themselves now in that role, where they have to go to the doctor's office and they have to do that? What were some things that you learned, or what would be some advice that you would give to someone that is now in that role?
Pay attention and recognize that this person that you have maybe admired, not everybody has this relationship. I was lucky enough to have it. This brilliant person that you've always admired, who's always taken care of you, who's, I always get teary when I talk about this stuff, is not the same person necessarily anymore. And someone remarked the other day on Facebook, a friend of mine, and I won't say who it was, but she overheard somebody complaining on a flight about their parent waiting too long to go to the doctor, or being not being proactive enough about getting help, and acted like it was their fault, and that nothing would have happened. They'd be in perfect health if they just had acted sooner. And I think one of the biggest wake-up calls that I want boomers and young people to sort of understand is that aging is really not a choice. It's inevitable.
We're all going to do it.
Yeah. And stuff happens.
Yes.
And you can't necessarily predict it, and you can't necessarily control it. And there will come a time for all of us where you need help, and you're going to be too proud maybe to ask, which my parents both were. So I guess, pay attention.
Yeah. I think that's a really important part, is to have that empathy that,
Yeah. Oh,
again, reality and perception of these parents are great people and they know everything. I mean, they took care of us.
right,
So there's reality, and then there's, thinking the best. And the reality is they may not be the same person anymore. They may not be as aware as they used to be.
right.
I have a friend, and his phrase is, we can't expect them to come into our world. We've got to go into
Right.
their world,
Yes.
because they can't, whether that's the small things like remembering the doctor's appointment, remembering the details,
Mhm.
or it might be larger to where they just can't come back to your world anymore. We have to go into their world because we're the only ones that can make that trip. So I think that's an important point for other people to manage. What are some
Yeah.
other things that you picked up along the way?
Well, the point you just made is one that was made to me when I started to understand dementia and Alzheimer's, which my mother later had, which is the meet them where they are.
Hmm.
And it is very similar to raising children. Um, I don't have kids of my own, but I have a lot of friends with kids and a goddaughter. And I will say that um, one of the beauties, I think, of this full circle of life, if you see it that way, is that if you live long enough, you become childlike again towards the end. So there was a lot of beauty in a weird way in me learning how to do that for each of my parents as they aged. And I was able to care for them in a way that they cared for me as a baby.
Yeah.
They changed my diapers. So honestly, I should have known how to change theirs, even though that's probably one of the most embarrassing and difficult things about aging and parents. And that's why we hire caregivers, and that's why we like other people involved. So I'm not sure that answers that question, but that would be another point: is to kind of embrace and understand, um, like you said, that this person is still the person you used to know, but they're going through something that's different, and
Yeah.
you need to accept it
Yeah.
instead of being angry. I mean, we're all going to be angry about it for a little while, but you have to process that anger, and then you have to move on.
Yeah. Something you said, you talked about treating and nurturing our
Mm,
our aging generation,
mm.
with the same kind of respect and honor as we do for our kids. What
Yeah,
what does that mean to you?
it's really become something that's sort of at the core of everything I'm trying to create, which is other cultures do that. And I don't know why American or Western culture doesn't do that aside from our worship of youth and beauty and perfection. Um, but there's so much wisdom, I believe, and there's so many lessons to be learned when you witness someone go through that entire life cycle. Um, when my mom died, she was around it sort of mentally and emotionally like a 10-year-old due to her disease and also the aging process. Um, Luckily, she didn't go all the way to infant again, so I didn't have to deal with that. That's really difficult. I've watched that
Yes.
happen to a lot of children and caregivers too. My dad, he exited long before all that happened, sort of on his own. But I really do believe that we should be nurturing and honoring and caring for our aging population as well as we do our children, even though they don't have a future in this dimension that we know about. But depending on what you believe spiritually, I think they have a future.
The future.
It's a
Yes.
different future that we can't witness.
Yes.
But, I really think it's important to honor that. And not one of my biggest angers as I went through this with my parents was putting people away
Mm.
and not bringing them into society. Like I wanted to bring my parents in their wheelchairs and walkers to every event, everything I was participating in, every concert, every luncheon, because I wanted them there and
Sure.
they enjoyed it when they could be there. But our society doesn't make that easy for
Yeah.
everybody.
So, what keeps you up at night when you're
Hmm.
thinking about, the aging and getting older yourself, and when you're thinking about, what you want to do and the message that you want to give over the next 25 years? What is it that keeps you up at night?
Hmm. Well, personally for me, it's not being able to get all this done before it starts to happen to me.
Yeah.
I don't know the window. None of us do. I hope I have 20, 30 good years ahead of me, but I have no idea. So I think what keeps me up at night, luckily I have long-term care. So I know I have a few years, technically, maybe financially taking care of me, if needed.
That's an important message, the importance of long-term care.
Yeah.
My wife and I had that conversation just a few nights ago, and preparing financially. But what keeps you up at night?
Well, yeah, my parents didn't have it, but so that was difficult because we definitely, used a lot more of their money than we wanted to. What does keep me up at night? I think my biggest fear is if we can't cure all the diseases that we're now faced with later in life, how are we as a society going to care for all of these people who will need our help? And how will a single woman like me afford it? And who will be my, family?
Hmm.
Who will take that on for me? But also, how will we as a culture and a society care for these millions of people, if we know the numbers, at many different economic levels? One of my biggest fears is the people who I was fortunate, my parents were fortunate. What about people who, and many of my generation, don't have that kind of savings or money put away?
Yeah.
So that's my biggest concern is financially. And I think culturally, economically, as a society, how are we going to be able to manage that burden?
Yeah. And flipping the coin,
Mm.
what excites you? What do you see as possibility?
So much. Oh my God. So excited. I mean, honestly, I think there's like a zillion jobs and businesses and careers and innovations possible in this space if we're optimistic enough about it. We're not necessarily obviously going to extend lifespans necessarily indefinitely. And I don't know if the problem of death is going to completely be erased. Although
Probably not. I wouldn't
some
be
people
betting
seem
on
to
that
think,
one.
yeah, I mean, there are people working on that. We learned that at our Healthy Aging Summit. But I personally think it's rife with opportunity because the numbers are tripling. We know by 2050, there will be as many millennials as aging boomers, right? Um, I can't imagine it getting. I don't think it's going to get any worse because I think we are. I mean, people are living longer and healthier lives, and I think technology and healthcare is trying to meet the needs on multiple levels. So I feel like the chances of you and I making it to 125 and maybe not having as many issues as my parents did have are greater,
I think so.
but I have no guarantees of that.
Yeah.
Right. And, I don't know how many hip replacements the body can take. And I don't really know if we're going to have a cure for Alzheimer's. And that is one of my biggest concerns.
Well,
But
you will want to listen to our episode with Dr. Young with the Brain Center because there is
oh,
some
great.
amazing stuff that's going on in the research. And I'll do this as just a little promo, but we are just barely at the tip of the iceberg on understanding the health of the brain, and there is amazing stuff that's going on, really right here in Central Texas in Dallas with the Brain Center, and there's a lot of optimism about
Yeah.
curing / preventing
Mhm.
Alzheimer's. So I'll give you some hope on that one.
Yeah, no, I loved hearing her speak too, and I really love the whole neuroplasticity idea. I'll also say that although I know Clairvoyant is working really hard on ways to have people stay in their homes as long as possible, one of the advantages, perhaps, of moving my parents, even though I regretted it so deeply, for both of them. My dad hated it. He didn't think he was old, and he kept saying, "Get me out of here. I don't want to be here with all these old people."
Yeah, I'm young.
And he looked much older than many of them. At this point, he was 90. And he, was a great athlete, but also smoked for 30 years. And, he had more physical issues. My mom had more mental. But physically, she was in great shape. So I hope I got the best of both of them. But, the social, my dad was an introvert. My mom was more of an extrovert, which is interesting. His job made him an extrovert. My mom preferred the introvert lifestyle. But when she was surrounded socially by all these caregivers and other people, she thrived. And there is something to be said for, especially from her generation, she had waited on people and cared for people her whole life. And suddenly she needed care and people
Yeah.
were waiting on her.
There's a
And she,
lot of work that's going on in European countries with communities, right? And
yeah,
and this whole
right,
concept of an aging
yeah,
community, more than just assisted living, but I think,
multi-generational.
yeah, multi-generational. I think there's a huge opportunity, both from sort of, social conscious people as well as some entrepreneurial business opportunities of creating multi-generational communities. So that I think that's an extremely exciting
Yeah.
potential that we have.
I really love that concept too, because I think my parents, part of the reason I'm working on a book is they had so much wisdom and so much to share. And they didn't really get a chance to share all that. And they left it all to me.
Yeah.
Supposedly it's all in my brain. Or my dad actually wrote 2 books before he died that I promised to edit and publish. So that's another couple of projects down the road. But they could have had so much more fulfillment in the end of their lives had my father tutored in history or military history, which he, was a retired Air Force colonel in 3 wars. He could have done so much there. My mom was an incredible cook, an incredible artist. There were so many things that they could have carried on to other generations long before they started to have issues. And even while they were having issues, that I think would have made their lives more fulfilling. But the problem, maybe also with my parents' generation, was they retired at 55.
Yes. And then they
Which
thought
we can't do now.
retirement was, let's go play golf and check out. I mean, we can have a whole nother conversation
Yeah,
about, second half. I think it's Bob Buford has the book called Halftime, and
right.
it's designed for 50 to 55 year olds, and starting a new career or really leveraging everything they have. And to your point, those we take those times for granted, cooking, artistry. And it's now, I would actually say, in many ways, it's easier than ever to sort of pass those things kind of on to the next generation. But there are a lot of people that just, they don't think about that. I mean, even, writing your diary and writing your life story. I mean, your parents were fortunate to have, a
Mhm.
publisher and an editor for a child. But I think that there's a lot of opportunities for others to really, take those experiences and don't let them die
Right.
with you. So, well, Marianne, thank you very much for being a part of the show, the podcast. And if someone wants to connect with you, what's the you've got some projects in the future, but where how can they follow you on Twitter or Facebook or on the web? What's the best way to connect with you and kind of follow your journey as you
Thanks,
start
John.
making this more public?
Yeah, I am a horrible perfectionist, and that might be coming from both parents as well as years of working in television network news. But at the moment, everything lives at Change How We Age, all one word, spelled Change How We Age with one W, on Twitter and Facebook. So they can follow me there, where I curate content and occasionally spout my own opinions.
Love it.
There will be a website, hopefully, to follow, and news of it will go there. And then for my company, if they're interested in working with me on the PR, social media, or content side, I obviously want to do more work in this space
Yeah.
since it's one I'm passionate about. I also work with healthcare, technology, academia, some arts clients. That's macmediatx.com. So I really appreciate the plug, but one day soon, hopefully I can come back and tell you when the book is done and when the website's up and when I'm doing my, my own speeches and podcasts. But
Love
it's
it.
a movement, I hope, that I'm going to try to create around my journey.
Well, your journey is fascinating. I love the way that you shared how you were in this professional career mode, and then you had an immediate change, and that lasted for about 15 years, and now you're starting to kind of transfer that knowledge and that information. So thank you very much for being on the show. We really do appreciate it. Well, if you found this episode valuable, please do us a favor and subscribe to Coffee with John in iTunes and leave us an honest rating. Now, if you'd like to listen to previous episodes, you can visit us at coffeewithjohn.com. That's coffeewithjohn.com. And also, if you have comments, ideas, and topic suggestions, connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. All of the links are available at coffeewithjohn.com.
Cause I don't care and didn't make the bed. Sip coffee on my couch, what can I do instead? No work, it's only fun, cause it's all okay. Cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day.